Welcome to the Mercy Hill Church podcast. This podcast is a collection of sermons and conversations intended to stir up your affections for Jesus. We hope this content helps you know and tell the story of Jesus better.
Amen. Amen. You can have a seat. Well, good morning. My name is Brandon. I'm one of the pastors here at Mercy Hill. We're in week 2 of a series through Psalm 23 called In the Hands of the Shepherd. So if you have a Bible, we'd love for you to open up to Psalm 23. Listen, here at Mercy Hill, if you brought your phone, you want to use your phone, that's great. Print version. If you don't have a Bible, there are a couple in the back of the room that you are free to go grab. You can even stand up and go grab one right now. That's totally fine. And if you don't own a Bible, we'd love for you to take one of those and keep it. Listen. I'm not even sure I need to preach this morning. Good gracious, man. What Sharon said was so good. That was enough for me, filled me up. That was great. Same thing in the 9. Bo led that time for us, one of our elders, and it was amazing as well. And I'm so thankful that we have so many people in our church that can not only have a passion for the Lord, but can communicate, man, the things of the Lord clearly to us. So thank you, Sharon, for leading us. So Nora Rosendahl is the COO of Hinsta. Hinsta is a leading coaching company, a professional coaching company here in our country. They coach everybody from professional athletes to leaders of Fortune 500 companies. And several years ago, Nora did a little informal experiment where with the people that she interacted with on a daily basis, she asked this one groundbreaking question: how are you? Not groundbreaking, normal, right? Normal question, simple question, how are you? And then she recorded people's responses to that question, how are you? And you're never gonna believe this, or maybe you will, but 8 out of 10 people responded in almost exactly the same way: busy. So she got answers from, I'm so busy at work, busy with the kids, this project is keeping me busy, busy, right? 8 out of 10, which is interesting. I mean, we all know we live in a busy world. We're often restless because of our busyness. But for that high of a percentage of people to identify themselves, their emotional state at any given point in time, how are you? Busy, is interesting. I mean, even here in Atlanta, we know about busyness. After all, our motto is we're the city that's too busy to hate. That our busyness overcomes any sort of racial tension that we might have in this city. We're constantly on the move, going to work. Most of you driving 30, 45 minutes an hour to get to work, driving, hustling home for soccer practice, trying to get to class, get to internship, constantly busy. Adam Waytz in the Harvard Business Review concluded this about our society and our culture and all this busyness. He just said simply, busyness has become a status symbol. And oftentimes that is what it is. That being busy is a way to identify ourselves as important. As long as I'm running, as long as I'm going, as long as I'm moving, as long as somebody else needs one more thing from me, then I must be significant. Justin Earley takes it a step further. This is what he says. It used to be that the upper class showed off their status by displaying their lives of leisure. Now we do it by conspicuously displaying our lives of constant busyness. The more important you are, the more in demand your time is, so nobody who is anybody has time enough for sleep. Staying busy. Now we know where our larger culture leads, this busyness leads us to. This is not a surprise to any of us, that often because of our busyness and placing our worth on our busyness, then we are addicted to productivity. And it's all incredibly exhausting. In fact, perhaps the second most common response to the question of how are you is tired. I mean, I live in a house with 2 teenagers. Whenever I say, hey, how are you? They both say tired, right? But the question that we want to ask today is there another life? Is there another way to live and to navigate this life that isn't based on determining our importance or our value by our busyness, that's different from being constantly exhausted or constantly overextended? And I think we're going to get to that answer in Psalm 23. So if you got a Bible, check out Psalm 23, just 2 verses today, verses 2 and 3. Now remember, this is David, who's the king, writing about the Lord. David previously has been a shepherd, and he's using this metaphor of sheep and shepherd to teach us something about God's character. Here's what he says, verse 2. He, that's the Lord, his shepherd, makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his namesake. The thing that's repeated twice in these two verses right off the top is he leads. David is not only interested, like we learned last week, that the sheep belong to the shepherd, but he's saying even something more significant, that the sheep follow the shepherd. That in the shepherd, the sheep have a leader. That he's guiding them day in and day out, that they go where their shepherd goes. And notice where he leads them to. He is leading the shepherd is leading the sheep to green pastures, to still waters, to restoration, paths of righteousness. The picture that's painted is a picture of rest and renewal. A very different picture from our busy, frantic, chaotic day-to-day lives. And right in the middle, David says, he restores my soul. He drops the metaphor of the sheep and shepherd and just wants you to grab the point. The big idea that he's driving at here, which is God restores the souls of his people. Now remember, we've talked about this before several times, but the Hebrew understanding of the word soul is different from our Western understanding. It means whole self, not a disembodied spiritual blob like in the movies, right? That our souls are the union of our physical beings, our emotional beings, and our spiritual beings. It's all of us. So here David says, when you follow the leadership of the good shepherd, what the sheep gets in return is the restoration or the renewal of their entire selves. You see, I think our problem isn't that we're overworked, overextended, or overly busy. Our real problem at the heart is we want to be in charge. We want to lead our own lives. We want to be the shepherd, not the sheep. And so we work really hard. We stay busy trying to prove ourselves to God and to others. We stay busy trying to control every aspect of our lives. And for some of us, controlling every aspect of our lives isn't enough. And so we stay pretty busy controlling every aspect of our spouse's lives or every aspect of our kids' lives. We want to be the shepherd. But here's what David Gibson said. He says, a renewal of the soul takes place in seeing afresh who I am in the world. Reality. Here's what he says, not master and commander, but a frail and prone to wander sheep with a good shepherd. And that my experience of soul rest will always be dependent on my proximity to him. Did you hear what he said? That what most of us need to see to get past the busyness and the restlessness is maybe not even making sure that we have an extended vacation coming up on our schedule. What we need to see is the reality. Man, I'm not the shepherd. I'm not in control. I'm not the leader here. I'm not the guide here. We could summarize it this way. Our source of rest is not by being the shepherd, but by knowing the good shepherd. This is a type of restoration that a nap just simply can't supply. And y'all, I love a good nap. I took one yesterday, all right? It's the restoration that comes from knowing that we have a good shepherd that provides for us, cares for us, and is leading and guiding us. Now let me point out 4 ways that this is important in this text. See the first phrase? He makes me lie down in green pastures. Philip Keller, I referenced him last week, is a modern day shepherd who wrote a book, A Shepherd's View or Take on Psalm 23. And here's what he points out, that sheep will not lie down if they feel insecure, unsafe, or hungry. So they're not going to lie down as long as they feel as though they're not in a safe place and as long as it seems like they need more food. And so those sheep will continue to scramble, looking for, foraging for, and desperate for food. They'll be restless until they feel like, oh, now I am full. But the sheep that is protected and perfectly provided for will be able to rest, be able to lie down. That sheep doesn't need to scramble for more food. That sheep doesn't believe that food is in a limited supply, and if they don't get it now, they're not going to get it. Instead, that sheep, Philip Keller says, trust that the shepherd is going to lead them back to these green pastures over and over and over again. And likewise, we can't rest when we are scrambling for more. When we believe that our security is in what we have, then we will constantly be scrambling to get more and more and more, never able to rest. When we think we are on our own, that no one is looking out for us but us, that no one is going to provide for me but me, then we can't rest. That feeling of constant need drives us. It's like, have you ever been to the fair and seen that cash cube thing? Do you know what I'm talking about? Somebody gets in that, right? Clear all the way around. You guys know what I'm talking about? Like, okay, thank you. All right, man, 9 a.m. was tracking with this. Maybe you guys just don't have as much fun as the 9 a.m. service. I don't know, right? But what do? They start blowing dollar bills around, and what does a person do? They start grabbing whatever they can. You know what I'm talking about, right? And what does everybody else do? Everybody else stands on the outside and looks in through the clear grass. They make it clear for a reason, because it is wildly entertaining to everybody else to watch you frantically and chaotically try to stuff dollar bills in every pocket in your jeans, right? Well, for many of us, that's exactly what life feels like. That machine is going to shut off at some point. The dollar bills are going to stop flying around at some point, and I have to grab what I can now, constantly scrambling for it. But knowing the good shepherd and allowing the shepherd to lead his sheep means that we can trust that the God of the universe is personally involved in our lives, and he is the one providing for us. Man, we are not alone. Our future is not in our own hands. It is not solely dependent on what we can grab at any given moment. We can rest because we know the good shepherd. Second phrase says, he leads me beside still waters. Sheep, just like the rest of us, need water. And when the sheep are thirsty, they become restless and set out in search of water. The problem with sheep is that when they're thirsty, they will drink from any water source they could find. Whether that is a dirty pool or a rushing current that could sweep them away or just a good old mud hole, they will find water. And just like sheep, we often feel unsatisfied, thirsty for more out of our lives. And we will go scramble to search out and drink from almost any source that we could find. We can't rest when we're searching for satisfaction. But we get desperate for fulfillment. We get panicky about our satisfaction. And so we, just like the sheep, will look for it in any source. I mean, we'll try to find satisfaction in money and building up our retirement account, building up our bank account. We'll look for it in sex. We'll look for it in relationship. We'll look for it in professional significance. Any pool we can drink out of to quench that thirst. But David says, oh, the good shepherd, he leads me to calm waters. He provides the satisfaction that I need. Augustine says, you have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. That actually what most of us are searching for is found in knowing this good shepherd and knowing the Lord. That our deepest needs are satisfied in him. And so we can't rest when we're scrambling for more, and we can't rest when we're searching desperately for satisfaction. We also, the third phrase, he says, restores my soul. I said this earlier, but I love this. He just drops the metaphor, right? He just says, hey, I'm just going to tell you what I mean. And what I mean is you are a spiritual being. There's more to you than just what the physical world around us. And for that sort of need to be met, for that sort of restoration to happen, David is saying, man, we got to go to the Lord for that. Last week I read David Paulson's Anti-Psalm 23, and the line in there that is haunting is he just says, I can't fix myself. I can't fix myself. Most of us don't believe that. Most of us believe that we can fix ourselves. And we're just one more self-help book away from everything being perfect. Man, we're just one more promotion away from everything being, we're just one more plan away from everything being perfect. But we ignore the fact that we are spiritual beings. We can't rest when we neglect our spiritual lives. Our lives are more than just material. We're more than just our bodies. When we ignore this idea, then we give most of our attention to our bank accounts and our financial health, to our physical health, maybe to our emotional well-being, which is all well and good, but we ignore that we are spiritual beings, and the more we ignore that, the more we will find ourselves exhausted and overextended. Man, you can't vacation yourself to this sort of restoration. What we need is the Lord. We need to be tuned into the fact that our life is more than just stuff in our bodies. I love, Harold Kushner writes in his book on Psalm 23, The Lord is My Shepherd, about a group that went on a safari tour in Africa. And so they paid some porters to go along with them and be their guides. And they trekked 3 long, hard days out into the wilderness for the safari, carrying gear and supplies. And then on the 4th day, the porters made them stop. And when the tour said, why are we stopping? We got more to see, more to do. We got to go. The porters just said, we have walked too far, too fast. And now we must wait for our souls to catch up. And we have gone too far, too fast. Now we need rest for our souls. Now, I don't think that Kushner in this story is using souls the way that I believe Hebrew people use souls, right? He's not describing here this whole self of the soul. What he is describing is this spiritual part of us. So here's the idea is that if we don't give attention to that our spiritual beings, who we are in connection with God, if we're just so busy running after what we have physically, what we need, getting to where we're supposed to be to that neglect, we will be worn out, overextended, and tired. We all know the feeling of fragmentation that happens when we move too quickly in our lives. Bad decisions, our priorities get off. We start to reduce the view of ourselves to just what we can accomplish. But our whole selves need restoration, and our whole selves include our spirits, and that all needs our attention. Which is why knowing the Good Shepherd is so vital to us. Being clued into who God is and what he is doing in our hearts and in our lives is vital. The more we ignore it, the less we're going to be able to rest. 4th phrase. He says, he leads me in paths of righteousness for his namesake. Returns to the metaphor. A sheep leading, or a shepherd leading his sheep. So here's often what shepherds would do is they're taking sheep on a rotation of places, guess what? That they've all been before. And so the pathways would be worn down, often with big ruts. Why? Because the shepherd has led the sheep that way before. And here's what David is saying, is God can lead you to righteousness or right living or living the life that you were designed to live, and he knows the way. And as long as you and I are trying to forge our own way, to find our own way, discover our own path, we're not going to end up where these well-worn paths lead. We live in the middle of a cultural moment where hyper-individualism says that we have to create our own identities. Man, you don't receive it. It's not given to you. You got to go find it. For a while, right, especially in the United States, 60s and 70s, you got to discover yourself. Now it's you just got to create your own self. There's nothing to discover. You got to make it. And it is exhausting to constantly try to forge your own path with no connection to the future, no connection with other people, as an island on your own. And we can't find rest when we are forging our own way. When we think that we can find everything we need just by striving to be our best selves or creating an image of who that self might be, it just leads to more exhaustion. And David's saying, no, it's unnecessary. The life that you were designed to live, God knows, and as a good shepherd, he's leading you into that life. You just got to walk the path. Walk the path that generations of followers of Jesus have walked. This is it. This is the way. And I love this last phrase. He says, for his name's sake. That God leads this way for his own glory and his own honor, but don't miss this. This is so important. God leads by putting his name on his sheep. Does that make sense? God's like, no, these are mine. These sheep belong to me, and I am more than happy. I am overjoyed to put my name on them. Think about how significant that is in your life. Man, God's not ashamed of you. He's not trying to hide the fact that you're in his flock, that you belong to his people, right? God isn't like, hey, these are the good sheep over here, and these are the ones that I don't talk about over here on this side, right? No, he's like, I put my name on my sheep. They bear my name. Maybe when you were growing up, you had a similar experience to me. My parents took pretty seriously the Nichols in my name, right? Brandon Nichols. Nichols meant something. And they would say, hey, like when you go out in public, you represent us. People know something about us by the name. And sometimes it seemed, most of the time, overjoyed, right? That I had the Nichols name. Occasionally, right? Like when I got in a little trouble in the 11th grade, and it was my mom's first year teaching at that school, occasionally there was some problems around that, right? But here's what God's saying, man, I put my name on my sheep. And he's also saying, I think I put my name on the paths too. Oh, my name is signed at the bottom of these paths. You want to know how good the paths are of righteousness that I'm leading you in? It's got my name on it. I'm willing to stake my reputation on these paths. So we can't find rest scrambling for more. We can't find rest searching for significance in any source that we can find. We can't find rest by ignoring our spiritual lives, and we cannot find rest by trying to forge our own way. We need a good shepherd for all of that. But the question is how? How do I get this shepherd? How do I have this sort of relationship with God? Well, a few thousand years after David writes this psalm, another king comes on the scene. His name is Jesus. And Jesus looks at a crowd one day and Jesus says this, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus says, hey, the rest that David was trying to describe in Psalm 23, the relationship with the shepherd that David was talking about in Psalm 23, that's me. And if you want to come to God and have God as your good shepherd, here's where it starts. You come to me. If you're looking for rest, you come to me. If you're heavy laden, if there's too much work in your life trying to prove yourself over and over again, Jesus is like, I got the solution, and that's right here. You just come to me. He is the entryway into a relationship with God, and he is the one that ultimately gives us rest. The truth is, the reason we answer the question, how are you busy, is because we're trying to justify our own existence. We want people to know we're important. We want somebody's approval. We want them to know, hey, I'm working real hard here. Aren't you happy with me? The truth is, we spend so much energy and effort trying to just earn approval. From God, for some of us, we think and believe, man, we got to pile up a bunch of good deeds. We got to pile up a bunch of wonderful religious thoughts in front of God so that he will approve of us. For some of us, we're fighting for the approval of others. And we feel like, man, we got to pile up a bunch of really significant stuff so other people will think that we mean something. But here's what happens when you come to Jesus. That gets obliterated. The rest that Jesus is talking about is the rest of having God's approval. See, the central message of Christianity is not work really hard and maybe God will notice you. The central message of Christianity is that God came to us to rescue us, and he saved us by laying down his life for us on the cross and rising from the dead. The central message of Christianity is that Jesus did for us what we could never do for ourselves. That he did the work so that we could enter into a relationship with God so we don't have to do the work. You want to talk about rest? Man, when you embrace the fact that you no longer have to be perfectly obedient, perfectly put together, perfectly like Boy Scout material, like whatever, fill in the blank, in order to have God's approval, that you get it solely based on the work that Jesus did for you, that's real rest. Soul level rest. The rest that you and I need. And then, when you have that, it radically changes the approval that we need from other people. Even in our most significant relationships. When you're fighting for approval from your dad and you have been for 25 years, think how it pales in comparison to having the approval of the God of the universe. Man, you've been working so hard just to get your boss to say good job. And that's a great thing, but think of the power of knowing that you have God's approval on your life regardless of how your boss responds. Man, you've been working real hard to get yard of the month in your neighborhood, right? So that your neighbors will be thrilled with how your bushes look, right? Think of the power of resting in the fact that you already have God's approval, even if your neighbors are upset because the weeds are getting a little long in the yard, right? Now, it's not to say those other relationships aren't important. They are. It's to say that they're different. And when you know the good shepherd, and when you know I am his sheep, his name is on me, and he is proud, full of joy for his name to be on me, then that radically changes the way that we see everything else. We can rest because we don't have to work for God's approval. Jesus did that for us in our place. Now, to reinforce this, we have a spiritual practice. You know, every week we're talking about a different spiritual practice. And the spiritual practice to remind us what God has done for us in our place, that we don't have to work for everything, but we can rest, is the spiritual practice of Sabbath. Now, Sabbath is just a 24-hour period of time where we rest, enjoy life, relish God's good creation, enjoy what God has given to us. We worship, and we just celebrate who God is and what he's done for us. God models this. At the very beginning of time, the creation story, God works for 7 days, and it says that he Sabbath, or he ceased to work on the seventh day. It's a time where we just cease working so hard so that we can enjoy it. Now, often with a Sabbath, when people get introduced to this, what we do is we go, okay, I'm going to start Sabbathing, right? And often what we think about immediately is stuff that's at the margins, right? What do I need to give up to make sure I can Sabbath? Well, it can't be the job. It can't be travel soccer. You know what I mean? Like it's got to be like some kind of other easy stuff to give up. Here's what I would tell you is most often what happens and the way we evaluate it is an indication of our own cultural idols, right? The fact that we never or rarely think, oh, I should get a new job in order to obey God and Sabbath. Probably is not an indication of anything else but the fact that we overvalue our jobs. The fact that we go, oh, we can never give away travel soccer, that's too important to our schedule, is probably an indication that we got something else out of balance. The fact that we're so quick to go, hey, we can't do that thing with those people because we got a Sabbath, so we're going to cut that out even though we see them like once a month, but I'm not going to do anything about working 72 hours a week, indicates something about our own cultural idolatry. Do you understand what I'm saying? And so as you start to evaluate this, I want to empower you. Like, you can think about everything differently when it comes to Sabbath. You can think about your job differently. You can think about the ball schedule differently. You could think about everything differently in order to do this. I think sometimes we feel trapped. Well, everybody else is working 68 hours a week. How am I ever going to keep up? We feel trapped because I just bought the new house and the new car, and I got to keep up, 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 I got to produce because of all the stuff. And that actually gets to the heart of the problem. See, Sabbath is a reminder that God still works even when you and I don't. And what we have is not based solely on our own productivity. And we often forget that. Does that make sense this morning? You guys with me? All right. Now, if the pattern is work 6, rest 1, here's the truth, and I'm going to let you evaluate this on your own. If you need some help, I would love to help you evaluate it, right? Some of us need to hear the work 6 part. And I'm not saying you got to get a grinding job that sucks the life out of you, but some of us just need to hear the part of the equation, which is actually our work is significant and meaningful, and we need to engage in it. And some of us, probably most of us in this room, need to hear the rest 1 part, right? That, hey, actually, you need to set aside some time to stop working. Set aside some time to cease the work. And in that way, we really can find what's beneficial for all of us, regardless of what category we're in. Does that make sense? Everybody with me? Okay. We're going to send out some more resources on how to Sabbath this week. If you want to talk more or learn more about how to Sabbath, I would encourage you to engage with your missional community, which is our version of small groups. Or if you're not in one, all of our MCs are talking about this over the next couple of weeks. So I would encourage you to try one out so you can learn more about this spiritual practice. Is that good? And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, there's no way I can do this. It's too much. I got too much going on. I am busy. I love what Justin Earley says. He says this: practicing Sabbath is supposed to make us feel like we can't get it all done, because that's the way reality is. We can't do it all. Practicing the Sabbath is supposed to make you feel that way. It's supposed to give you, especially when you first start, that little panicky feeling like, well, how am I going to return all these emails? You're not. Because you can't get it all done. And I can't get it all done. It's a reminder that we rest in God's finished work for us in our place. That the most significant thing in our lives has been already taken care of. Already done, already finished. God just keeps working when we sleep. And God just keeps working when we Sabbath, and God just keeps working when we're watching a movie with our family, and God just keeps working when we got family breakfast laid out for everybody to enjoy, and God just keeps working when we all go to a football game together to have a good time, and God just keeps working when we go on a walk in the woods somewhere and a hike, and God just keeps working when we do whatever it is we do on the Sabbath to rest and enjoy and remember and celebrate, and God just keeps on working the whole time. Does that make sense? So I want to encourage some of us to think deeply, make a plan for how we engage in Sabbath. Also, there's some of us in the room today that don't know Jesus. I mean, you're tired. I mean, you're so tired from constantly feeling the pressure to prove yourself over and over and over again. I mean, your life is those adjectives Jesus used: heavy laden, full of labor, burdensome. I don't have a magic bullet for you today to fix all of your problems at work and school and everything else. I don't have like a secret practice. But I do want you to know, and don't miss the fact that Jesus' invitation is open to you today as well. He says, come to me. If you want rest for your soul, if you want to know what it's like to not have to fight for God's approval, If you want to know what it's like to belong to God and have his name stamped on you, if you want to know what it's like for the most significant thing in your life to already have been done for you completely, Jesus says, you come to me. For some of us today, maybe today is the day where we finally trust Jesus as the Lord and Savior of our lives, as our shepherd. And have confidence in the fact that Jesus brings us into God's flock as his people.
Thanks for listening to the Mercy Hill Church podcast. To keep up with the life of Mercy Hill Church, follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We believe the Christian life is best experienced in community. If you're in our area, we'd love for you to join us. If not, we'd love to help you get plugged into a local church near you. Have a great week.